Today's a listener question. It may not go the way the person thinks, but that's part of the fun. I have a question for you. I'm still essentially a new shooter and wanted some advice. I got your practical shooting training book and was planning to work through it. I also try to dry fire 3 to 5 times a week, depending on my schedule. Based on this, I have two questions. Do you think that's sufficient to become a decent shooter? How much live fire would I need at minimum? So, bunch of questions there. Let's talk first about how much is sufficient to become a decent shooter. I think it all depends on what your terms or what your definition of decent is. If it's to win your local match where no one else shoots, it may not take a lot. Maybe your local match has a lot of heat and you have to be quite tuned up if you want to do well or to place favorably. Maybe you're just a concealed carry type person thinking about home defense or just being fast and accurate for whatever reason. It all depends on what you want to get out of it. With a lot of shooting, I think you get out what you put in. So for many years, not knowing if I'd ever win anything or make GM, I just put in, well, basically all my autism into working on training and trying to do the best I could, learning along the way, consuming all the information I could, and really just being all in for shooting, which meant most days I'd be dry fire practicing when I could, go to the range once or twice a week, and that kind of be my program for many years of doing that. I recently had a conversation in class. It was actually it was a law enforcement class, and we were talking about, like, man, like how long does it take to get, like to my level, whatever that means. Like how long does it take to be as good as you are? I was like, well, most of my adult life. But it's not just the time that takes it, because if it was just a matter of putting in so many years, then most people just automatically get there. Instead, there are some like newer shooters or people just getting into shooting that become lethally good inside of 6 months or a couple months, just because information on the internet's more plentiful now than ever. And it's kind of just, some people just have that ability for hand-eye coordination. Natural learner creates cause or connects cause and effect very easily. So some people just pick it up very quickly. Some people it's tougher. I mean, I started in D class. For people not familiar, that's the lowest classification in USPSA. That was where I started. So let's see. So what does it take to become a decent shooter? I would say at least handling your gun a few times a week at minimum would be good to maintain proficiency. Obviously, you go weeks without ever dry firing and be fine, but it's important to continue handling your gun frequently, just because you kind of you get to the point where you can just manipulate the gun without really looking at it, whether you have to reload it or if it malfunctions or drawing it. All those kind of habits just come from familiarity in shooting or dry firing at least a couple times a week. So life happens, people get busy. Shooting isn't the most important thing to some people, though I can't imagine that being the case, but I'm told that's the case. For that, if you dry fire 3 days a week, that's going to build in the familiarity and stuff. And if you go to the range once a month, which I think is realistic for most people, I think you maintain like a decent proficiency. But it's not just the matter of doing the 3 like dry fire sessions a week and going to the range once a month. It's actually how focused you are when you practice. So that's why I even hate giving out numbers or amounts, because people see like, what's the least amount of effort I can do to get to where I want to go? And if you think about it in that terms, you're probably not going to be set up for success and kind of end up mediocre, or maybe less than mediocre, depending on how interested you are when you practice. Because just like sitting in front of the TV and dry firing the gun at a light switch or a clock or the bad guy on TV or whatever for 15 or 20 minutes isn't going to be as focused. Even if you did that for 30 minutes, it wouldn't compare to half that time with you having a holster and your rig on, drawing from the holster, and just repping things out for 5 or 10 minutes. So in the end, you're going to get out what you put in. I understand, well, ammunition is quite expensive. So for people that can't go shoot 1,000 rounds a week or 500 rounds a week, if you went to the range once a month and shot somewhere from 300 to 500 rounds to practice the things that you were working on diligently in dry fire, I think you can get pretty good at shooting. The dry fire part is really going to be the homework that you can't skip and that you need to be really focused on. Are you gripping the pistol hard like you would be if it was firing live ammunition? Are you picking out points on the targets and making sure you're not just kind of using the outline of the gun against the target, or calling it good enough, or sweeping your gun through the target? It's kind of like it's a magic wand and never really stop. It's just like a swipe by. Making sure you're finding the middle of the targets is really important. So again, to keep saying the same phrase, you kind of get out what you put in. The more focused you are with dry fire, the better your live fire sessions, as often or as sparse as they are, depending on availability and money, you're going to see the best results for what your dry fire is manifesting when you go to the range. Then when you go to the range, if you pay attention, even if it's only once a month, you hand pick a couple drills, shoot the ammunition you have, and then just observe what happened well, what wasn't so hot, and what should you work on dry fire for that month. So anyway, that's the way to answer the question. Let me know if you have a different answer for it. I'm always a little bit reserved about question asking what the minimum is to do something, because kind of like Office Space, the minimum pieces of flair. If you just want to do the minimum, that's okay too. But if you want to express yourself, you should dry fire more. And just, like I said, the more you put into training of yourself, the better your result you'll get. If it's kind of just a minimum amount of effort thing, then that's kind of what you get out of it too. So let me know what you think. How many pieces of flair you think is minimum? And even if you disagree with me. Either way, appreciate you watching.